Listen, y'all. Y'all know who it is. It's Lawrence Souffrant. Listen, I wasn't trying to get y'all mad on Facebook. Like, I took a clip of Tracee Ellis Ross, and I wanted to advance the conversation. I stitched it, trying to get a point across, and it's just a big misunderstanding. I got y'all a little upset, and that wasn't my intention. You know, I really wanted to just talk about standards and controlling in a particular way. But I'm glad that it happened because it helped me kind of get into the mind of how some women perceive things. And so afterwards, I did a follow-up post just asking women to describe what controlling looks like. And it was really, really insightful. But I go ahead and look at the clip.
That, but a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. And anything that starts to smell of that for me, I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize and I have no interest in it, and I will not do it again.
It's a lot from women who have this concept of toxic masculinity as it pertains to relationship, particularly this idea that men want to be controlling or treat the woman as a possession. Listen, brothers, anytime you hear a woman feeling uncomfortable when you have a standard for how you want your woman to represent the relationship out there in the world, or when a woman has a problem when you have a standard of how you want to be loved or how the household want to be kept, listen, that woman is for the streets. Okay, don't waste your time. Have a good time with her, but don't have a long time with her. Don't get your feelings hurt because she's going to give you a headache. That's all. All right, so let's start with how she started in that particular clip. Can you play it for me again real quick just so I can hear it?
But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity.
Okay, stop right there. A lot of men my age are steeped in toxic masculinity. So when I heard that, this is my thought process on how I got to the point that I got to, because that got missed somehow, how I took that clip and ended up talking about what I was talking about. It wasn't strictly from this clip alone, but let me just tell you how my brain worked. When I heard her say that, I immediately considered that this is a 52-year-old woman. If she's dating her age, we're dealing with anyone, 50, as high as 70, 75. So I'm considering that generation. And I know brothers from that generation, good guys even, and I know the mindset that a lot of them have. And when she considered it toxic masculinity, first off, that phrase, toxic masculinity, I have a big issue with. I understand what you mean as women when you say that, but I have an issue with it because if you're talking to a younger man and he hears the term toxic masculinity, then he wants to know, of course, what's not toxic masculinity. And a lot of the descriptions of what's not toxic masculinity isn't even masculinity. In other words, you use toxic, not saying you do it intentional. I'm trying to be careful because I see how there's some misunderstandings, right? But typically when I hear women use the term toxic masculinity, it's really designed to emasculate the man altogether. Because the truth is, the masculinity is never what's toxic. The man could be toxic. The behavior could be toxic. But the energy that we call masculinity is not toxic. For me, when I hear toxic masculinity, that's like hearing toxic fire or something like that, where it's like fire is just a form of energy. In and of itself, it's not toxic electricity. Like, what are we saying? The way that you use the energy can be toxic, but the energy itself is neutral. So already I kind of knew, I had an idea as to where it was going to go. I didn't know what she was going to say, but I considered the mindset that those that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s have as it pertains to relationship. So let me continue the video. Go ahead and pick up from there.
And have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks.
Okay, stop there. They were raised in a culture where there is a particular way a relationship looks. And so she's saying that because of their toxic masculinity, that most men, she didn't say all, right? I'm gonna give her credit there, but she said most men, which, okay, I'm breaking this down, right? That's the whole point of the video. She ain't date most men. Like, let's call a spade a spade. She ain't date most men, right? So if she's making a generalization about that generation, I think that's fine. but then I get stoned when I make a generalization? Like, I don't understand the double standard here. She could make a generalization without having experienced most men. There's 8 billion people in this world. She's been in this world long enough where it used to just be like 7 billion. She ain't meet not even a quarter of the men that exist. So to say most men in her generation, I have the ears to understand she means most men that she has dealt with in her age group. And one of the problems that people have, but women specifically in this particular context, is they want to condemn or reduce or categorize all men, or most men in this case, based off of their anecdotal experience. And they never seem to question, why are they attracting that type of man? Because men come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and mentalities. So we can't sit here and put all these men in a box and say that even men that age grew up in steep toxic masculinity. Let me explain something. When it comes to relationship dynamics of that generation, yes, there is a way that men want their relationship to be. Let me know if you consider this toxic. They want respect from their woman. They want their woman to be nurturing. They want their woman to be considerate and compassionate. They want their woman to be sexually available. What about that is toxic? I think the problem is when you meet specific men where they express or demonstrate those standards in a particular type of way, you may not agree with their standard, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with it. But those standards are not toxic. And I would even argue that the wiser younger men want the same thing. They want their woman to be nurturing. They want their woman to be respectful. What man would want to come home to a woman that's consistently disrespecting him? And you're calling it toxic? Oh, but I know the parts you're talking about that you might consider toxic, when he wants his woman to show up a certain way. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit to my part of the video, where I said if she feels uncomfortable when a man has a standard based on how he wants her to step outside and represent the relationship. Okay, let me give you some game, because maybe you don't know, right? The man's woman represents the man whether he's there or not. And I know y'all women, you want to keep your autonomy from what I'm hearing. Y'all want to be your own person. Well, when you get into a relationship, you're no longer your own person. You represent the person that you're with, and that person represents you. So this is why when you see a guy who's perceived by himself as a single man, he's perceived bummy, he's perceived unattractive, he's perceived whatever, and then he gets with a certain type of woman, a baddie, if you will, the whole perception of who he is changes by society. Okay, I'll give you something modern. Jonathan Major upgraded his reputation by getting with Megan Good. Period. Even after doing the corny dances that he was doing and all of that, when he got with Megan Good, what it did to his social status. We can't just ignore that fact. Now, if you're dealing with a man who ain't doing nothing great in life, a regular dude, and he doesn't need to use networking to make ends meet, he doesn't need networking to make his net worth grow, then I can understand you might not really get this. He goes to work, then he comes home, who he's with may not really matter. But for men of a certain type of esteem, who they're with absolutely matters. I remember with the Steph Curry and his wife, when she said what she said, how it affected Steph Curry's reputation. Now, did it do a major impact? No, we kind of forgot about it and got over it. But why was it a conversation in the first place? Because she represented her man. Women, if you don't understand the power that you truly possess, your man can be upgraded simply by how you present yourself to the world. And there are some men who want to be perceived a certain way for certain reasons, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so they're asking their woman to show up a certain way. That in and of itself is not toxic. And that in and of itself is definitely not controlling. Not saying that she said that was controlling. She didn't even, well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but she didn't even really describe what controlling was. And so I'm not judging her and making assumptions about what she sees as controlling. What I did was took her verbiage, Because a lot of women speak of the toxic masculinity and the relationship being perceived a certain way and how they made them feel controlled and how they made them feel like they were a possession. And I'm gonna deal with that possession piece in a little bit. I'm not saying that this is what she was saying, but just like how y'all were saying what I say influences other men and things could be misunderstood, the same thing goes with what she's saying. She might have a particular context and y'all understand what she's saying because you're women, I get it. And most of you can identify with being with a controlling man. I don't wanna be insensitive to that fact. What I wanted to highlight was the women who assume that if a man has any preference or any standard that deals with her, just having that alone is controlling. I wanted to talk about that. And I used her clip in dealing with men of that particular generation because I know the thinking of the men in that particular generation. So I used that clip of her talking about toxic masculinity and relationships in a particular way. And let me also pause that. Do y'all know what leadership is? In order to be a leader, you have to have a vision. And so you should expect your man, if you want him to be the leader, and maybe that's the disconnect. Maybe she doesn't want her man to be the leader. And in that generation, yeah, a lot of those men are not comfortable not being the leader, whether they make $10,000 a year or $10 million a year. For them, if I'm the man, I'm the leader of the relationship. So maybe she didn't like that. Maybe she's been so successful that that bothers her. I really don't even want to speculate because she never told us what it was, not in that clip at least, right? So I don't want to speculate. But if you want your man to be the leader in the relationship, he would have a vision of what the relationship would look like. He would have some idea of not just how he's gonna take care of you, but the things that you guys are gonna do together, but even how you guys show up into the world. You know, I know couples that match all the time. I know women who never used to match with their man, and now when they step out, they match him because that's something he liked, and she loves him enough to say, yeah, babe, we can do that. And he's not controlling her. It's not a matter of control. What's happening is he's letting her know, babe, I would love to do this. Now, if she says, I'm not trying to do all that, you trying to control me, first off, by just insinuating that he's trying to control her can offend a man. Let me be abundantly clear. If a man can't give suggestions of what he wants and how he feels, then he can never be emotionally vulnerable to you. And I hear so many women complaining about men being closed, how they don't want to open up about their feelings. Well, that's because every time they feel, you feel, and when you feel, it's always negative. So once he realizes if I tell her that I want things different, like if a man wants to tell his girl, yeah, that meal wasn't really hitting, she feels attacked. When he's being objective, like, yo, I've tasted better from you. So what does he do now? Oh, he like, oh, no, babe, that was slamming. That was good. Man, you always knock it out the park. He's lying to protect the peace with the woman that he loves because she feels like he's controlling if he don't. He can't tell her, yo, I'm tired of eating spaghetti every day. I would like some rice. I would like some steak. Like, I wanted to mix up. If he was to say that, he's controlling. I'm talking about the women who agree with that sentiment, that any suggestion a man makes is controlling. These women exist. Is Tracee Ellis Ross one of those women? I cannot say definitively. But I know that these women exist. And I was addressing that particular group. Now, if you're a woman and you're hearing this and you're still offended, I said what I said. But I just want to make it abundantly clear that I was not shooting at her. I wasn't saying she's for the streets. All right, I was gonna wrap up, but let me break down this she's for the streets thing. I think y'all got really offended on that. When I said that she's for the streets, what I was actually saying was that is not a woman I would recommend. And let me be clear, not Tracee. I was not saying Tracee Ellis Ross is for the streets. Let me be abundantly clear. The woman who thinks that standards are controlling, that woman is for, I said that, right? I literally said that, right? Okay, play it back for them so that they can hear that part.
When a woman has a problem, when you have a standard of how you want to be loved or how the household want to be kept, listen, that woman is for the streets.
That woman is for the streets. When I said that woman, I wasn't talking about Tracee Ross. I was talking about the woman that I described, the woman that thinks standards is controlling. Because I will not apologize for this. If you are a woman who has an issue with a man having a standard for the relationship, then you should be single. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Or you should be with a simp who is just happy that somebody wants to be with him. Be with that guy. He's the guy that's gonna let you do whatever you wanna do because he doesn't have the confidence to believe he gets the woman that he actually deserves. Be with that man. But the men that truly know their value and what they bring, not just in society, but to the actual relationship, brother, if you know that about yourself, don't ever feel guilty for having a standard for the relationship. Don't ever let these women think that you're being patriarchal and misogynistic because you have a standard for the relationship. What you do is you don't degrade her. You say, I respect your position, have a nice day, and you go on about your business because she needs to stay in the streets. She needs to stay out there and get her little hood boogers or whoever she's gonna get with. Because a man with no standards really can't make an impact in this world. And how can he have an impact for his business, for his social groups, and not his relationship? You lost your mind. You want a man with standards, but then when he brings those standards to the relationship, he's controlling? No. Controlling men, when men hear controlling, let me tell you what men hear. We hear abusive. When we hear controlling, we hear you don't want to be here. And so the response to that is, oh, you can go. Even if we love you and we want you to stay, if you feel like you're being trapped, nah, baby girl, you can go. Any respectable man would just let you go. And he's not giving up on the relationship. You just called this man an abuser. That's what we hear, that he's an abuser. If you're gonna make that claim, it needs to be true because accusations are enough to ruin a man's life. That's not something to play with. And I'm not gonna play with it. I see all the crazy stuff that y'all was trying to say, and some of y'all made some very valid points. And I also understand how it was misunderstood. For the misunderstanding, I apologize. Look, when I say that, they're gonna say I apologize like a man, right? Because I didn't apologize for the things you feel I'm guilty of. But an innocent man never claims to be guilty. I didn't do the things that y'all claiming that I did. But there was a misunderstanding. I could have communicated it better. For that, I apologize. But for me, warning brothers to stay away from a woman who's scared of standards, I will never apologize for that. So I know that sometimes women feel like men treat them like they're a possession. I want to try to make sense of this, but learning from my communications with you, let me first address the reality that there are men who treat women like objects. These men exist. There are men who are so insecure that just being with a baddie makes them nervous and they want to hide her. These men exist. There are men who want to tell her when to brush her teeth and what to eat and when to eat and how to eat. These men exist. So I want to be clear and I want to be sympathetic to that because I do not support men like that. Men like that are not masculine. They are, in fact, feminine because they're not doing that out of strategy. They're doing that out of pain. They're emotionally hurt and they haven't dealt with that pain. So once we get into that emotional piece, they stop being masculine. They're doing things solely from an emotional space. So by all means, I am not supporting those type of men. Now, if you want that man to love you and to provide and to protect and to consider, he has to believe that you are his, not as a possession, but as a loyalty piece, meaning you are loyal to this man, because if you're not loyal to him, he will not feel confident in protecting and providing and loving. Listen, I don't protect my neighbor's car. I don't take rentals to the car wash. I provide for what's mine in the sense of I'm responsible for. And you want your man to feel like he's responsible for you, because that's when he's gonna check on you and say, hey babe, did you eat today? If you haven't eaten, let's go get some. You think he's doing that Like, why do you think a man would do that? Because he feels that he's not calling every woman. He's not walking down the street, hey, did you eat today? Hey, did you eat today? Hey, did you eat? No, he is specifically checking on you because he believes that he's responsible for you and you're responsible for him. And if that makes you feel like a possession, then I think we need to have some conversation on perspective. Because I'm curious to know, how would a woman expect a man, like what's her is she even really thinking about what he's feeling inside or what he is sensing or what his obligations are to the relationship that makes him want to step to her and make sure that she's doing all right? Like, it's not, do you think he treats all women like that? And let's keep it 100. For some of you, right? Not all of you. But for some of you, if he treats other women the way he treats you, you feel a way about that. Because they not his woman, you're his woman. It's the same concept. If he's talking late night on the phone with other women after getting off the phone with you, you're gonna feel a way. Like, oh, you wanna be with these other women? You expect to be handled differently. So I wanna know what possession means from a woman's perspective. But let me tell you what it is from a man's perspective. You're not a possession like an object. You are a loyal partner to us who we feel like we're responsible for, and so we go the extra mile to take care of you because we feel like that's our obligation. That's us bringing value to the relationship. And let's keep it 100. A lot of men have strains in their relationship when their woman doesn't feel like he cares about her. It's hard for him to be that vulnerable and safe with you if he's not sure that you're actually gonna be here for the long run. And so yes, there is some level of ownership, but not possession in the way that y'all make it seem like he wants to put you in his pocket. Once again, for the men that are like that, by all means, I discourage that 100%. And if you know me personally, you know I'm not putting my wife in my pocket. But you better be damn sure that that's my wife. And if you step to her a certain way, you have to deal with me because that's my wife, okay? If she's hungry, I'm gonna get her some food, all right? If she's bored, I'm going to supply some entertainment. Why? Because that's my wife, you understand? And I'm her husband. I don't belong to you, I belong to her. So when she calls and needs something, I will apologize and excuse myself from you because that's my wife and I'm her husband. So if that still sounds like possession, then I will own it and claim it and not even argue with it because I don't think that's anything to apologize for. The only thing that we'll discuss is the type of possession or the level of possession. But I and most men don't see it as possession. We see it as being responsible and loyalty. Those are the things that we're combining in those type of behaviors. All right, so I've been helping men, oh my God, for decades now. And I have interacted with all types of men, different walks of life. I've dealt with wealthy men. I've dealt with well-to-do men, but not quite wealthy. I've dealt with broke men. I have had conversation. I have coached. I have consulted. I have counseled, hundreds, if not thousands of men through my life. I am extremely in touch with how men process things. There is a pattern amongst most men. The outliers are very small, but we differ because we're still individuals. So you have to be careful about what you're generalizing as it pertains to men. When it comes to the emotional intelligence piece, most men don't have emotional intelligence. And when I say that, let me explain. Emotional intelligence is not just feeling emotions. All men feel emotions. Emotional intelligence is about being able to identify what those emotions are and then how to process said emotions. That's where a lot of men struggle. And a lot of men struggle because they never had the practice. Typically, we start with like girls and boys. If girls crying, it's okay because that's what girls do. And boys crying, you know, the old school, boys don't cry, men don't cry, that type of thing. As a generation, we have moved away from that. But now what we've done is we've given men the freedom to express themselves, but we still haven't taught them how to regulate said emotion. And so now when men are expressing themselves, they tend to seem less attractive to women. The word that women use nowadays when men are expressing themselves, they call them sassy. That's the modern term for an emotionally expressive man. Now, I do believe men have every right to express themselves. I also believe that the way that they express themselves matter based off of their goals and objective in life. And no matter how much things change, things really stay the same. Men have to be very calculated on how they express their emotions to women, especially if they're single. If you're trying to attract her, you have to be careful with the way that you express emotions. Good, bad, and different, don't matter. I know some women, they feel like, I don't know, he's less attractive if he's too excited to see you. You see that man so excited to see you, you're like, okay, calm down, bro. And it's like, yo, that's dismissive. Because if he said that to you, you would feel a way. But I also understand as a woman, you might not want to see your man that expressive. You might like the expression, but not that expressive. So I try to teach men how to be emotionally intelligent, meaning that they can feel their emotion, but they can also regulate it so that they can express it effectively, right? With the consideration of the other person's emotions. So that's a short way of saying that's emotional intelligence altogether. Do most men possess that? No, but that's why I do what I do. That's why I created the course Restoring Masculinity. That's why I'm a life coach for not just men. I coach women, couples, whatever, but I have a heart for men because I know that they need help. Out of all the suicides that exist, to my understanding, the statistics say out of every 5 suicides, 4 of them are men. That is a statistic that should scare you. And so for me, I don't want our brothers killing ourselves. I'd rather empower them and equip them with tools to let them know, first off, you're not alone. Those strong emotions that you feel, we all feel them. We just all handle them differently. And I want to give you the tools to handle those emotions. So yeah, from money don't make you more emotionally intelligent. You know, poverty don't make you any less emotionally intelligent. But there are tools, and interacting with all walks of life, I think I'm well equipped to do that.